We'll see if this works. It looks like it's working. I am Don Ford. This is Brace for Impact, brought to you by Organized Affairs Tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, for listening in, either to the replay or live. We are now running this, instead of from Twitter, we're running this from our Discord, which you're welcome to join. It's a pretty solid community of like almost 1,400 people who are really trying to see what they can do to make their own world better, and then maybe we can figure out how to make other people's worlds better too, because that's what the name sounds like, right? So anyways, we're going to start right off the top with kind of like, I think, the perfect cross-section of politics, election integrity, America's soul being up, and that has to do with ICE and what is going on with Chuck Schumer, who I would say, as per usual, Chuck Schumer is really rising to the moment, right?
No.
Always does.
No, just no. No, Chuck Schumer, I've never... Like, where does he get his news from? Like, I feel like someone needs to go to Grandpa and turn off MSNBC or whatever. He's like that Fox News version for Democrats. It's just his bill that he's proposing to keep the government funded, which I think is an important inflection point.
What are you doing?
It's like an important inflection point in this whole thing on like, what are we doing? His current thing, just so we have an idea, we have citizens getting killed in the street. We have protesters being illegally detained. We have American citizens being illegally detained. We have people who are here following the legal process being legally detained. Pretty much everyone that they detain without a warrant is being illegally detained. That's my understanding of how ICE works. They can detain people from an administrative position if they have a warrant for that person specifically. So every single person that they're filling these camps with, essentially concentration camps where people are actually disappearing, are illegal. Every single person that's been arrested is illegally arrested. Whether they're illegally here in the country or not, it is illegal to arrest them that way. So we're at this point now where he said, what did he say? He said the deal that we were talking about was, he was saying, one, ending roving patrols. This is a reporter from Sahil Kapoor. He wrote yesterday that end roving patrols, tighten rules on warrants, and require ICE to coordinate with local authorities. So more Gestapo stuff, just, polite. Enforce accountability, a uniform code of conduct. There's no enforcement arm for this. So they can say they have to do this, but then all that the federal government will do is, well, we can investigate ourselves. So whatever we do will fit the code of conduct. And then they're requiring masks off, body cameras on, agents carry ID. And I feel like this is the, smile, I want to see your beautiful smile of immigration. Where it's sort of like...
There's no tweaking this. There's no tweaking this. There's no reforming this. Right. We need to know how we got here and get out of it. Like, do something different. This only started in 2003 due to the war on terror, and now that they're killing people in the streets, it's like we can see the wound, but like, how did the wound happen? Like, how did this all happen, and how do we heal it, and how do we change things?
Yeah, I think there's way too much, being okay with a lot of the terrible things that are occurring. Like, I feel like there's way too much, oh, well, that's okay if that happens that way, but it's not okay to, it's like, okay, we can terrorize people this way, but not that way. And you're like, wait, why are we terrorizing people at all? Like, why is terrorizing an option on the table? And I find the most disheartening about all this is, like, under Biden and other Democratic presidents, we told these people that we would give them a path to citizenship if they went to their court cases and they did their stuff and they stayed legal and they did everything properly. And they're arresting people who have done everything properly. They're just changing what properly is so that there is no way. And you've basically, I feel like trust in the federal government to do right by people has been irrevocably harmed. Like, it's been harmed in a way that we're not going to oh, we got rid of Trump and we got rid of all these guys and we fixed the enforcement problem and you can come back. Because I don't know if you noticed, there's one thing that people have been complaining about in New York, where the snow isn't getting cleared. The snow isn't getting cleared from the streets. or fruit prices are getting more expensive, or all these things that are happening that we relied on these people to do these jobs. Now, I'm not saying so there's a catch-22 with this, because going back to a system where these people had these low-paying jobs where they were treated improperly and they were always at risk wasn't a good system either. Going back to that system isn't automatically better.
Yeah.
In the larger sense, like it's not like a solution, but it is in the sense that we have a moment right here where we are like the very fabric of what holds America together as immigrants.
The system before ICE wasn't perfect in any way, but they've turned immigration into a law enforcement issue, and it has nothing to do with law enforcement, and they've used this through the war on terror to basically take away people's rights.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's like the difference between law enforcement and administrative enforcement. You know what I mean? It's like ICE is the closest thing that we have to administration enforcement, and which is something we need. That's the biggest problem with the federal government, is that we don't have a clear enforcement arm other than the FBI to administer enforcement of various laws. Like the Epstein files still haven't gotten released because there's no method for enforcement, and that's sort of the whole issue in a nutshell with how we're handling this stuff. We do need that enforcement, but the thing is it can't happen in this environment, because the environment is the type of enforcement is dehumanizing and inhumane, and there's no oversight, and then there's no enforcement for enforcement. So you got this like long chain of no accountability that it seems like is the intention.
We've normalized no accountability.
It does seem that way. And this is where, like, when you talk about this, it's like, if you want to talk about things that need to happen, the prisons need to be closed. Every single one of these prisons that opened, whether or not they were mandated or paid for by Congress, they're illegally filled with all these people who are being held without due process. It's costing the government a ton of money. It's totally illegal. These prisons need to be closed. These people all need to be released and sent back to their home states. From there, you can figure out the states can handle whatever their, enforcement needs to be for the individual person. The protesters need to be freed across the board. We have protesters being shipped all over the country. People can't be found. We don't know where anyone is. Not all these people have like family family looking for them, but they don't know they've been taken because they're not at the protest where it happens. These people are getting hit with charges for exercising their rights. I mean, some people are being murdered. This needs to stop completely. And I'd go so far as that we need to halt immigration enforcement entirely. Like, we need to halt immigration enforcement for the entire time until this is figured out, because
until we figure out what the hell is going on.
But it really is.
I agree with you, but I don't see anybody in Washington agreeing to that.
Well, yeah, but you got to argue from the left, right? You got to argue from the left. We got to argue. Like, I know they're not going to agree to that, but we still have to argue that this is the moral and ethical and correct position, is that in the current environment, all immigration enforcement should be halted until they can figure out what the hell they're doing and they can follow even the law as set. And if they want to change the law, that's a conversation. They can change the law, but they're not following the law. And then with ICE, you become this other issue because there's such a gray area. There are a lot of people, and this is a big conversation during our pre-call, is the risk on our elections. Is ICE a group of basically white supremacist Proud Boys who are going to go in and try to threaten people and affect, overthrow our election process? And they want to. Like, let's not kid ourselves. They want to.
Love it.
They'd love it, yeah. But it's a matter of, do they actually have the ability to do that? And I would say no right now. No, they don't. But
not at scale.
Not at scale, right. Like one or two elections here or there, but they haven't done that in any of these special elections that have been happening. So there's a lot. There's a lot of change. We also have I'm looking at something right now. Someone's pointing out that there's a special election in Congressional District 18 in Houston on the 31st, and it's between two Democrats, and that will put the majority in Congress down to one vote. So you do need to have all your Democrats show up. That would be nice if they actually showed up to do their jobs. But you're looking at, because that also changes how all of actually, I don't know, if they lose power mid thing, they change speaker, and they change, like, someone can put in a vote to change the speaker, and that will change how, but it won't change how all the meeting groups are set up. Like, the Republicans are going to stay in charge of those, aren't they? Because those get set up at, like, the beginning of the year. I don't know. I actually don't know how that works. I don't know.
The committees.
Yeah,
I don't know either.
I don't know the answer. Maybe I should just look that up.
Like, if the Democrats win majority.
Yeah.
In like a, what is this? In like a special
midterm, like in the middle of a term.
Yeah. I don't know.
No, I think if they were if the Republicans lose the majority, there'd no longer be the chair of the committee would no longer be Republican.
No, it's right.
Be a Democrat.
It does change. It does change. So if they did get control of everything, all of the committees change. So the push to start impeaching Trump could start as soon as they lose one more seat or a Republican agrees to it. Because they would need to take control of the speakership, and then from there take control of the committees, and then they could start doing that process. And all it would take is one. And that's how you know, like, I feel like that's the thing about the whole election manipulation thing that kind of bugs me, is like, we have elections going all the time. Like Mondami's election win. That they would have screwed with that. They would have screwed with, like, they're trying to, like, figure out how to screw with it. And let me tell you guys, one thing I do know a lot about is how elections are run. And it is such a huge process. Like, we were trying to put voting advocates at every polling site, and it was the most challenging thing I've ever thought to do. Like, it is so challenging. There's so many voting locations to actually influence all of them. After, it's kind of funny because after what Hillary Clinton did in 2016, most states overhauled their election processes so that they couldn't be manipulated the way she did. I don't know. If you don't know this, they wipe people from the rolls. So the big concern is election integrity works a couple of ways, but the big one is that it's really about either who is allowed to vote or how the votes are counted. Those are your two issues. But how is allowed to vote is a big problem in America, because what they will do is they will go into these, like, big voter databases and they'll wipe people from the roll. Like 800,000 people just got wiped from the Oregon voter data rolls for voting. But that's actually normal for a state to do that, because it's cleaning the data rolls of people who move or people who are dead or people are whatever. It's normal. That's a normal thing to do. So, but doing that on a larger scale, very close to the election where you have no time. That's why same day registration is both an important issue, and it kind of becomes an issue with Republicans voting in Democratic elections. That's a huge issue. So when you talk about open primaries and same day registration, the Republicans manipulate that all the time, way more than Democrats do. Matter of fact, Democrats are terrible at it. You're like, hey, we should do this, and they're like, that's bad, which it is. But at the end of the day, power is power, and if you want to help people, you seem like you can play the game as hard as the other team plays the game. It's like you don't go to a football game and go, well, I'm just not going to play as hard as them. They're let them have it. You're like, no, I don't think that's the right way to do it. But wiping people from the voter rolls.
I'm gonna run at half speed today.
What's that? Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna run at half speed today.
Yeah, exactly. No, just put in like half the effort. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
But it really comes down
Florida
to.
did that in 2016. Not 2016. When was Bush elected?
2020. No, 2000. 2020. 2000. Bush was elected in 2000.
Yeah. Our Florida Secretary of State wiped a lot of people off the rolls.
Right, yeah, and then so that's one of the ways they get. Now we in the Bernie movement era, we fought really hard to for more ease of registration and more same day registration. So wiping people off the rolls isn't as effective, but it still does limit who can vote in a lot of situations, and that is an effective way to manipulate outcomes.
Another one that they're doing here now is making everybody renew their vote by mail request, but not telling anybody about it. So you think, I voted. Well, last time I'm going to get a ballot and vote again. No, you're not. You better check with your local election office because it's been canceled.
Yeah, that is such a problem. Where I feel like we do need like a nationwide people checking their voter registration and like getting into that sort of stuff. Like we need nationwide, because the thing is, you got to reach people who are not on social media, who are not in these normal circles. They're not
engaged that much. They want to vote, but they don't, follow politics other than for the election.
Right.
Yeah, and then they show up and they can't vote because they got kicked off the voter roll.
Also,
or they're not going to get a mail ballot.
This will make you laugh because you're in Florida and this is such a problem. People coming in, what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. I forgot. There are so many problems. Is basically the point I'm trying to make. There are so many problems. Oh, I know what it was. In Florida, you guys, and this is anyone who signs up to a political email ever from like the Democrats, you're getting emails like nonstop. They send me
very true.
And every single one is, this is the most important email ever. So when it actually is the most important email ever, and you actually do need to reach people, they're not going to see it.
Yep.
They're not going to see it. And we don't
deleted it.
Yeah, exactly. Or they don't even open it. They don't even look at it. Because it's so much about fundraising and not about taking action that we've, like, lost connection to, like, well, how do we actually do something that's good for people? And
how do we get information to people that they need?
Right. And it's really, really hard because people start questioning which information is valid or which information is coming from who. It gets so ridiculous. But at the end of the day, the problem is that people think they're in these email circles. Oh, I've signed up for those emails. They'll let me know if something goes wrong. But they are so used to just turning them off that it doesn't get through to them. And so it's sort of like, we need like a nationwide texting campaign that can like reach people on the basis that they need to check their voter registration and see if they're on the rolls or not, or if they're registered in the right house or the right place or the right thing. Because also elections can be lost on provisional ballots. So if you force all these people onto provisional ballots, those ballots are not counted the same night, the same way normal ballots are counted. They're still counted, but you can already have a winner declared and enough provisional ballots to build. And then if that happens, then the Republicans, just everyone that happens to, Republicans or Democrat, cries foul. And I think that's reasonable, all things considered. But everyone who is like, they won the night of, then they lose 2 days later, they're like, someone cheated me. And,
aren't they only counted like if it's really close? Later?
I think they're supposed to all be counted, but every state has their own policy.
Okay, yeah.
They're supposed to all be counted, but that doesn't. But I do feel like coming down on ICE right now and cracking down on DHS so that they can't meet their, like, they shouldn't be able to do anything right now, because they're basically gonna, as the American public gets more and more stranded financially, joining up with ICE seems like a better and better position, right? And then you're in this position where they might get enough people to actually influence how election outcomes happen. And while they're not able to do that in these special elections, who knows what we're going to get into by November. And so unless ICE continues to grow in unpopularity and they can't meet recruitment goals, and people, they like the one thing they're relying a lot on is that if we force them to unmask, they'll be so unpopular with all their friends and family that they won't want to be ICE anymore. And you're like, do these people not understand how jobs and money work? Because if people have no job opportunities and they need money, they'll do whatever gets them money. And the more inundated they get into that, eventually your family becomes okay with it, because it's just an issue of money. People will often,
they get paid a lot of money.
The vast majority of people will put aside their morals to protect themselves in this environment if you can make the situation bad enough. I wish it wasn't that way, but I think the COVID pandemic has really taught us that people will just do just about anything. They will literally let people die to protect their way of life. We've like normalized that so much that, you know, how could that not carry over into this if we're not careful?
But Democrats trying to reform this or tweak this, it just adds legitimacy to something that's not legitimate. Like we need to just start over, like do something different.
Yeah, no, I think that's it really needs to be put to a full halt right now. Like it needs to be like this.
Somebody said on the pre-call, a polite Gestapo is still a Gestapo.
Yeah, I believe that was me. Yes, a polite Gestapo is still a Gestapo, and that's sort of where we are. We're rounding people up in the streets at their jobs, using tax information at their government meetings for their legal entrance. Like that's crazy. That's crazy. Like we're arresting people at green card meetings. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. And like in America, I don't think people really realize how much we depend upon immigration to maintain like everything. Like we depend on immigration, and it's what really gets me is that, you know, the old way of dealing with the immigrants was really manipulative. It was really screwed up. They, you know, they pay more in taxes. They get the least amount for it. We take and take and take from them. We can underpay them. They don't have any protections. You can always just call ICE on them when you don't want to pay them. Like there's so many problems with how we we handle immigration. But the thing is that these are the people who are trying to kick these people out who also benefited the most from that. And that's the thing that really trips me out about it. Because on one hand, I'm like, it's good that we're you know, this is all terrible, but it's good that we're stopping like whatever comes from this. It's like I feel like immigrants are going to end up with more rights, not less. Like I feel like the American public is not on the side of people being like immigrants are the problem. Buddy, we're all immigrants.
They should have more rights.
Yeah, they should.
Everything. I mean, why do we do this to people? I mean, if you read about this happening in some other country far away, you'd be so upset about it. Like, what are they doing down there or over there?
Over there, yeah.
They're doing it here, right?
Yep.
In a shithole country.
Yep.
Somewhere else.
Well, careful with that shithole talk. But yes.
No, I'm just using his.
Yeah. Oh, right. You're quoting. You just didn't do the Trump voice.
I'm quoting him. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what that's what we've become, a shithole country.
Yeah, we've become.
Yep.
And I think there's something to say like the quality of a country is really based on how it treats immigrants. You know, because it's just otherwise it's just national supremacy, which is, I don't know. I feel like that's such a lazy position to take. Like we're the best because of it's like it's kind of reminds me of that team sport bullshit. Like my team is the best, and I'm a Packers fan, and all the people who are against the Packers are evil. And you're like, I don't. It's a game, guys. It's a sports game. You'll get over it.
And we don't have healthcare.
Yeah, right. I know it's like a debate of like in America they're trying to kick everyone off Medicaid, but it's like, and then at the same time people are staying poor to stay on Medicaid because it's cheaper and less work to be poor and have a lower quality of life than to pay huge amounts of money for your healthcare that isn't very effective. You know, it's a really weird situation we've gotten ourselves in. And this is just kind of goes to show like America in general is sort of failing. It's like the whole process is failing. I feel like, and it has a lot to do with we've lost a sense of objective reality between all the entertainment news and like so many other countries were funding propaganda in America, you know, to make Americans think all these different things because whatever America did was where the rest of the country went. And so it's this huge game to like manipulate our dollar, and instead of like, I don't know, it just made all the worst decisions because I just don't think we're making anything for the benefit of the American people. Like, how does the American people benefit from ICE? Like, how does it
terrorizing people?
Yeah, how does it benefit from making people hate us and scaring people and stealing children from their parents? Like, are you just so it's very reminiscent of what they do in Israel and Palestine. It's a very reminiscent policy because they take children away from their parents at a very young age to emotionally and mentally break them in an attempt to like control their future. And I feel like they're trying to do the same white supremacy where they're taking people's children away from them in order to put them under psychological terrorism, you know what I mean, physical and psychological, and then they'll just let them go after a while, and those kids are so fucked up that they won't do anything to attack the state. And you're like, they were never going to do anything to attack the state. Like, what the hell are you talking about? That wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And so it's just like the choice to do everything the way they're doing. I don't see how it does anything except harm people. Like, where does this help Americans?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think anyone has to answer for that.
No. There's also the selective law, like around the world, like not following international law or upholding international law, or only in certain situations. It's like we're doing that here now.
Yeah. Actually, we've been doing that for a long time. We're just a lot more blatant about it now.
Right. But it's on I'm saying it's on display in the streets with this lawless agency.
Yeah, it does seem, that's the whole thing. It's like you enforce the laws that help you and you ignore the laws that get in your way. And this is back to the whole, like, so much of our country was built on good faith. So much of our country was built on, you know, if a court said you had to not do something a certain way, then you didn't do it that way. You didn't like it. Maybe you didn't agree with it, but you did it anyways. And I feel like with Trump and the Republicans and there is no more good faith. And I feel like now we're in this position where, like, any progressive platform has to be really circulating around the idea of legislating a lot of these things into law, and that are where we're traditionally just built on, you know, oh, well, you just do it. Like, there should be consequences for people who don't follow these rules, because there's consequences for every other rules that you don't follow. It's like the consequences for citizens are extreme and inherently there because of the police, right? And the police can enforce all these laws.
Monopoly on force.
Right. And for, like, rich people, that doesn't exist. For, like, rich and powerful people, there is no enforcement. They just kind of like, yeah, well, we decided not to do that. And you're like, didn't you take a $50,000 bribe? You're like, no, I didn't do that. That didn't happen. You know?
And even if they do get, you know, caught and put into the criminal justice system, they will get out of it because they have enough money to get the best lawyers and, you know, the best representation, and they'll skate, or they'll get a very minor slap on the hand. Whereas if Joe tries it with the public defender, he'll
yeah.
There's justice and there's just us.
Right.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of yeah. It just comes. Yeah.
But yeah, we need to codify stuff that we never thought we were going to have to codify. It's just like, well, nobody's ever going to do that. Oops. Yeah, they are.
Mm-hmm.
Standards and norms just aren't cutting it anymore.
No, yeah, exactly. We can't be like, oh, we need to keep decency to it all. It's like decency is completely lost. It's like I feel like we're in.
And that is one of the things that Schumer does not grasp, it seems to me.
Well, he talked to the Baileys, and the Baileys told him that they were very concerned about everyone being classless. Yeah. I finally remember the name of the family, Jess. Apparently, if you guys don't know, Schumer has a fake family that he talks about whenever he wants to spout some crazy bullshit. He talks about this fake family, the Baileys. Well, I think the Baileys, it's not a real family. It's not a real group. It's a fake group that he just, like, makes up.
He's got a whole backstory for them too. I think they live on Long Island or something. It's not just that he talks to this, you know, imaginary family. There's a backstory to them.
Yeah, it's because when I actually, okay, so true story. I did not know that this was a fake family until Jesse, who's speaking here right now, told me about it, and we've dug into it. And I thought for years that this was some family in New York that were his constituents that were like really
Real
powerful.
family.
Yeah, that was a real family. The way he talks about like they're real people. They're not real people. It's fake people. And it's who he.
So I wonder if he asked the Baileys about these minor tweaks to ICE.
I think it's just like his like personal in his head. He's like the Baileys. I talked to the Baileys. Is it the bottle of Baileys hidden in your office? Is that who you talked to? Like I don't understand where that came from and got so normalized. And they like no one calls him on it. No one's like, hey, that's a fake family. And he just kind of goes.
Bailey said we need a 3-point plan and to keep the government open. So I went with it.
So ridiculous. The probably most ridiculous. Probably one of the most pre-Trump. It was probably the most ridiculous thing in politics. The fact that was just some fake ass family is normalized for him to implement policies that were just god awful.
He needs to resign. We need all new leadership. He's not leadership material. He's proven it a million times. He's been wrong about so many things.
Yeah, it really. Yeah, I mean that'd be a great solution. It's just getting him to actually resign is.
Yeah.
Whose job would it be to keep America in favor of Israel, though? Whose job would it be if it wasn't him?
He does view that as his job. He said that.
I know he said that. I know. It's a crazy thing to say. It's my job to keep America pro-Israel. You're like, I am 100% sure that is not what your job. Maybe you think it's part of your job. Maybe that's something you want to do. But I'm pretty sure your job is running the Senate for Americans.
And representing your constituents
in New York. Yeah, seems.
Not Tel Aviv.
Seems like an odd choice to be like, yeah, this is my job. And you're like, I don't think that's true.
Well, when Israel pays him so much, I guess, they are his employer.
Yeah, but he's just getting paid by America, right? Because American money goes to Israel, comes back to him. And that's just like, what the fuck? And I don't know. All that stuff has just gotten so wild and out of control. And it does feel like... What's that?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, it does feel like this is exploding into other things because, when you talk about, like, public health as a priority, I mean, when you're dealing with, like, stealing people's children from them and human trafficking, public health gets just left on the wayside completely, even with all the stuff, awful stuff they're doing at the NIH and HHS and FDA and CDC and just gutting everything, which we are obviously not in support of. There's been like one or two things he's done that I've been like, okay, but like 99% of it, you're like, no, this is a terrible idea. I do think that resetting the NIH, if that is a possibility, wasn't the worst idea, because if you follow NIH studies, they're not done very well, and they don't usually amount to anything, which is a big problem. So like maybe having some like long-term new blood in there is a good idea, but like how do people who get out of college or try to do these things step back into that, and who sets that up? I just think that like if we are able to like take a power shift here and actually unseat these fascist douchebags, then there's really the core argument is who is going to be the person that helps rebuild it all. And I'll tell you, people like Chuck Schumer who are saying these ridiculous things now, I mean, if you think that they're going to be a benefit to putting these systems back together so that they work functionally, I just think that's a huge mistake. These are not the people. The people who broke the system are not the people we should be looking at to fix it. I think Schumer was really proving that with his demands right now over DHS funding. And I think that just comes back down to, I think it's time to start a call to action, specifically for Congress, for the senators and House, to have more, I think the word is radical, more extreme demands on what needs to happen. Because these people need not only be unmasked, the prisons need to be closed, the deportations need to be stopped, due process needs to be re-implemented. Like, the whole process needs to change. And I feel like it really comes down to, in the meantime, it needs to be defunded. Like, it just needs to be defunded. And I think abolishment is a process, right? Like, when AOC said abolish ICE, I've said many, many times that I did not think that was the right position at the time, because it was going to lead to situations like we're in now, with all this additional hostility and people, being harmed and all this sort of stuff. But now it's already happening. So there's no reason to try to avoid it now. We need to lean into it and make sure it stops happening, really stops happening.
Congress holds the.
I think there's a moment here. I think there is a moment here, a window of opportunity, because I think almost everybody in America is mad at ICE and wants them gone.
If they do a 2-week extension, where basically the talk is right now, and I don't know where the deal is as of, this is 7:52 p.m. LA time. I don't know where exactly. My understanding where it is that he's talking about doing a continued resolution, which will continue funding the government at the same rate for 2 weeks. And then that will allow more funding for more conversation about DHS as its thing. And in that time, it has to be a full court press from the public to be like, we can't keep doing this at all. The whole immigration system needs to be overhauled. People who are here following the rules shouldn't be deported. People who are, people who've lived here their whole life should be getting automatic citizenship. The whole citizenship process needs to be less expensive, because I don't know if you guys know this, but the citizenship process is wildly expensive. So, like, even if people save all their money and do all their stuff, like, do they have the money to actually do it? That's the big thing. Like, well, why didn't they file the paperwork? Because they don't have the money. You need a lot of money to do that. That should be almost free. So you're into, like, the whole immigration process needs to be overhauled. ICE should not exist. We should have a immigration enforcement arm, but it should just, like, here's the thing that kills me. They're like, the federal officers should be working with local cops. Well, why aren't local cops just handling warrants from immigration, like, enforcement? Like, why aren't cops just doing that? I don't like cops. I'm not a big fan of them, but I'm just saying, like, if you're telling them that they have to coordinate with these groups anyways, why aren't we just having those groups do that work in the first place?
If you have a situation
they're not getting warrants, for one thing.
Yeah. If they have a situation where somebody's breaking the law, that's a police matter. That's a lot of times what they're saying is somebody's breaking the law and they need to go after this person.
Yeah, that's my understanding. That's what police are for.
Yeah, we already have that.
So if they have to work with local police to administer these warrants, why aren't the police just handling all the warrants? And a lot of the times you don't need to, like, violently arrest somebody. It's like someone didn't follow the process. They come and then they are forced to go in front of a judge, and the judge, the immigration judge, determines what should happen. And then all the due process is being covered. The enforcement that we have is seeing it. Like, it doesn't make sense that we have this other federal body.
Because I think that Department of Homeland Security was just like a cover your ass move by Bush administration because of 9/11, and they wanted to create this other agency because they claimed that the different agencies couldn't speak, they weren't communicating well with one another, and so they needed this other agency.
Yeah, so let's get another person talking. Got 10 people who can't talk in the room. You know what we should do? We should add more people. That usually is what helps that problem out, right?
So they invented Department of Homeland Security and brought ICE in and got rid of the immigration naturalization selection or service.
Yeah.
Which is what we should have had. You should have a service that handles immigration, and that's the thing. And then when somebody doesn't meet their meetings or doesn't do what they're supposed to do, then it should be handed over to local cops, wherever that person is. And they're always like, these people are undocumented, though. Then how are they finding them at their jobs and at the courthouse and at the, like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, no, of course these people are documenting themselves. Like, well, we don't know if people came and stayed too long on visas. Well, those people can't get jobs. They can't do all kinds of things. And we should be making it easier for those people to become citizens. Mm-hmm. Like, what's the big deal? They're like, oh, but they'll vote. Oh, that just like you vote. What I think every Native American feels in this country. I feel like it really comes true that no one is illegal on stolen land. I've always had mixed feelings about the stolen land thing, as ancestors have stolen land and as it were, and I feel like you're back to this place where Okay, and we are participating. There is some land back happening in America and California specifically right now, both in Black communities and in Native communities. Very, very little of it, but it has happened a little bit. So it's not like a totally illogical policy that's not supported by the various Democrats. And so you're at this point where, like, how can anyone be illegal on land we stole? Like, how is that even a thought process that people have? That's not a thing, you know. Like, we stole the land specifically so that other people could come to it and make their lives better. That just doesn't make it. That's how you know it's just white supremacist bullshit, and it's an extinction burst. If you guys don't know what an extinction burst is, it's basically when, like, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. What'd you say, Jesse? A rat in a corner?
Yeah, it's like a cornered rat.
Yeah, it's like a cornered rat.
You don't know what they're gonna do. If you go at them,
right? And they all have rabies, apparently.
They probably do.
So it's one of these things where, like, we're seeing this group who is dying out. These beliefs are dying out, and so they're in their last ditch effort to exert that control that they are in no position to maintain. And so and you're back to, in a silly sort of way, it really is the Second Amendment that holds all this together. It sounds so bonkers to be on the left and be like, well, the Second Amendment is really holding this whole country together right now. But at the end of the day, like, when the NRA was like, absolutely not, this is a legally protected right. You know, the people on the right were like, you're coming after my Second Amendment. It's like, weirdly, the one thing that, like, you can get both sides to agree on to some degree. And that's the thing that sort of keeps it from, like, ICE didn't tackle that guy who had a gun because they weren't afraid of his gun. There's a reason they're afraid of his gun. They know what they're doing is wrong. They know these people have this right to do, use their Second Amendment rights in these situations. Like, Americans have the right to use guns to protect themselves from tyrants. It's in the goddamn founding document. And they know it. And so there's no answer on trying to control people on the scale that doesn't involve having to come for their guns first. And that's the reality of why, you know, fascism has never really been able to be like a full-blown thing in America, because you can't do it without taking people's guns away. You just can't. You have to maintain a balance with the public who could murder you. I'll go to jail. They'll go to jail for it, sure. But they have the right to do it. Which is weird. It's a weird thing to say. But it's what is literally holding America together, is the potential that if you push Americans too far, they might murder you. And that's... we see that aimed against the people, but we haven't seen that aimed against people in power in a long time, because you don't do that for that exact reason. They kind of have
how right-wingers always explain the Second Amendment, which I never really thought that's what it was.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, it is kind of... It is. It doesn't mean, like, we shouldn't limit gun access. It doesn't mean we should have AR-15s on the street. It doesn't mean... Like, I'm not sitting here in support of all the Second Amendment NRA positions. It's just the reality is that when you look at what is keeping things from going into a full fascist state, is that a ton of Americans have guns, and you can't really do fascism without taking people's guns away.
But ironically, when any little gun control has happened, it's been because of stuff like this, where people like the Black Panthers brought guns to protests.
Right.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah.
You know? The other side of it, you know?
Yeah, it is pretty wild to hear them say, oh, no peaceful protester brings a gun to a protest. It's like, so are you saying that all those people who brought guns to protests during the COVID stuff were not peaceful?
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Oh, God, don't get me started on Kyle Rittenhouse. The amount of propaganda they have around that clown is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Like, the amount of, oh, he did this and it was okay because of blah, 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 blah. You're like, the dude wore rubber gloves so he wouldn't leave fingerprints on stuff. He's a child with an AR-15.
He brought a gun to a protest to hunt protesters.
To hunt protesters. Yeah, but they're fine with that because they want to hunt protesters. They indoctrinated that kid into thinking that that was okay to do. You know, and people did try to disarm him because there's a child with a gun in the street. Like, he's a child. But that's what's so bonkers to me about it. It's like, if you see a child in the street with a gun, you should try to disarm that child. So the idea that they're like, it's fine that a child brought a gun to this thing because he was actually da-da-da-da-da-da, and you're like, no, child, gun, street, bad. You know,
but this situation was so clear to everyone that they already took his gun away from him. He was unarmed. You know, like...
Oh, the guy who shot him is a total psychopath. Like, he's been figured out who he is, and we've seen his Twitter posts and stuff, and he's a psychopath. He's an actual psychopath. Like, he is somebody who's not safe to be in society with. Which is another thing with, like, ICE. It's the same thing we were saying about the IDF. And IDF agents are coming back to be ICE now. But you're basically like, you can't live in society with people who think about other people this way. You can't, like, they used to have to hide, so you didn't realize how many of them there were, but you cannot safely live in society with people who think that humans are, like, certain humans are okay to kill. I mean, I've always been, like, even anti-capital punishment, because I feel like that's just more murder. You know what I mean? I've always traditionally been anti-capital punishment because of that.
I don't trust the state to kill people.
No.
You shouldn't.
No, they certainly don't seem to know what they're doing.
There's been enough mistakes with that we shouldn't be doing it.
Right. And so, you know...
And not just mistakes. I mean, it's a class issue. Again, you get back to the poor people get the death penalty because they got public defenders and no resources to defend the death penalty case. Don't see too many rich people getting the death penalty.
Yeah, and you have to keep people on death row if you have the death penalty, or else there's no need for death row and the death penalty. So you have to commit, like, if you have, that's the problem with capital punishment and the way our prisons work. It's like the for-profit prisons. They have arrangements where they have to keep the prisons at a certain level of full. You know what I mean? If you have but the same is going to be true of all these maximum security prisons that only keep death row inmates. So you're into, like, if you have capital punishment, you have to have people on death row, or else there's no reason to have death row prisons. So if you're funding death row prisons, then you have to be putting people on death row. And so that's
fulfilling the obligation of legislation.
Right, yeah. It becomes like a business arrangement rather than we're doing this for the betterment of society. You know, and that's sort of like what we're also seeing with switching to Canada for a minute. We're seeing with MAID. Like, there was a guy who just got put to death, essentially, because he was blind and had diabetes and was a little depressed, and they convinced him to kill himself. Euthanized.
Cheaper that way.
There was another guy who got euthanized against his will, or a woman, because the husband didn't want to take care of her anymore.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. And so there's just a lot of, like, how... And I think it does go back to COVID. I feel like it goes back to the pandemic, that we became too, like, numb to people dying. And so
we've normalized it, and that's what horrified me the most about the pandemic, is how easily people normalize this whole new level of death and disability.
Right.
Just without a second thought.
Well, and we see it in even the people who are trying to offer protections for COVID, like people who are talking about vaccines. We talk about the mRNA versus Novavax stuff a lot here. Or if you don't know and you're listening to this, our group was kind of instrumental in making sure a better COVID vaccine was state approved. We also use it for long COVID recoveries. It has a lot of benefits that outweigh what mRNA does. It lasts longer, it fights more variants. It just kind of goes on and on. It's better in every way. And we still have people arguing the benefits of mRNA when Novavax is available. And we get these studies. Like, there's a study that came out. We were looking at them during pre-call. There's a study that says that the COVID vaccines are about 50% the mRNA at preventing hospitalization. And I want to say, number one, just preventing hospitalization from COVID is not enough. You can't call that COVID protections because it actually doesn't do what vaccines are supposed to. And actually, Terry, you're a medical person. You'll back me up on this, I think. Vaccines traditionally are supposed to prevent long-term consequences, right? like the sequelae. Like measles makes people blind and deaf, or smallpox makes
like
you
polio,
right.
Puts you in an iron lung.
Right. You can still get these diseases, but you won't get the negative long-term outcomes, and that is what qualifies a successful vaccine. So you can still get sick, but you won't get crippled. No, we don't say crippled anymore. We say disabled. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah. This one works exactly the opposite.
Right, and that's like my whole thing is like people are pushing this as like a successful vaccination process, but it doesn't meet the primary demand of a successful vaccine process, which is it prevents long-term outcomes in a majority of cases. It should prevent them in all cases, but that's not happening with these people still advocating that like they're worried about how people like view, like if you talk poorly about it, they won't get vaccinated. Like we're telling them there's a better vaccine. Like these people who think they're advocating for people to be more protected by getting vaccinated, but they're advocating for a vaccine that does not protect people. And that's the whole problem that we were talking about, how there's 1 in 4 people, and this is kind of from a dubious source, at least Rasmussen or something like that, but it's still like feels very real when you talk to people, because I see it in my like real world. Like when I talk to people in my even people who are still masking, they're like, I'll never get a COVID vaccine again, and you're like, oh, you should, and they're like, no, I'll just wear my mask, which is, I mean, I guess that's good technically, but you get in these situations where people think that 1 in 4 people think that someone they know died from getting the COVID vaccine, which is obviously not true. It's obviously not true. That people did not die from getting the COVID vaccine. People died because they got the vaccine, then exposed themselves to COVID, and they did not have sufficient protection. And this example, this study that came out showing 50% protection from hospitalization, which is already not enough, it only measured like 50 days post, like the maximum protection. Like the window that they measured is so short. Like they released the study on January 26th, and they only measured until like, I think it was like November. Was it October to November or November to December? It was really, really short. It wasn't the full season. They
September to November.
September to November. Thank you. Not the full season. Like if you're going to have a season, let's just say COVID is seasonal. It's not seasonal. Let's say it's seasonal. That means you need to have a vaccine that protects you for 4 months. All studies, which if we are going to say it's a seasonal thing, then all studies should study and have the same cumulative efficacy or effectiveness for that entire period. Not just the narrowest window when they are the most effective, because that doesn't mean anything. Like, oh, it was so effective for 50 days. Okay, but what about the other 50 days? Well, we didn't measure that. Why didn't you measure that? Well, it doesn't look good, because last year it drops down to like 30 or 20% really fast. And you're like, so how is that effective? How are we still out selling that to people as a way to protect yourself when it is clearly not protecting people? Like, it's clearly not protecting people. And we have people still out here, well, we don't want to get a bad name because, it'll do. That is anti-vaxxer bullshit. Like, I just feel like we've entered into this world that for vaccines specifically and COVID vaccines specifically, well, actually, there's a lot of vaccines that we do this with. There is a better version of every vaccine. Not every vaccine is the same. There's a better version of all types of vaccines made by different companies under different things that have different outcomes. They are not all the same. To say that all vaccines are the same is an anti-vaxxer position. It is I'm going to say it again. Saying that all COVID vaccines are the same and that any COVID vaccine is good enough is an anti-vaxxer position. It sounds like, oh, but they're saying pro-vaccine. No, you're saying all vaccines are the same. Not all vaccines are the same. That is, an anti-vaxxer position. So people who are out here pushing this think they're helping people. They think they're trying, but they're not. They're not helping people. They're actually hurting people. They're putting people at risk. They're making people think they have more protection than they do. And this is so screwed up because, we talk about Novavax being sterilizing a lot. It is a sterilizing vaccine. The definition we use for Novavax or for sterilizing in vaccines is wrong in relation to COVID conscious community, like the way, and I want to admit I participated in that wrong definition. I was confused how it works for a long time. I said the wrong things just like everybody else, but then we actually got into the data, we understood how it works, understood the science, we understood what's going on, and we can say we're using this phrase wrong, But people will accuse me, even though they're using the phrase wrong, that because I say it does this technical thing that is true and it is rated this way and it is tested this way, that I am overpromising people's level of protections when I am accurately saying what the studies are saying. And then these people who are talking about mRNA as protection are literally overstating it. And it's those same people who turn around and criticize me for telling people the accurate information in both cases. And I feel like we've gotten this far too tied into what people, like, it's not about... This is going to be weird. It's not about... Okay, I got it, actually. It's not about being correct. It's about being right. And they want to make these two things seem the same. And you have all these people that are so heavily invested in their position. That was wrong the whole time. It was wrong from the get-go. We knew the vaccines didn't do this stuff. I was talking about it, trying to warn people in 2021 when they were rolling out, begging people, please don't take your masks off. This is not going to protect your brain. It does not have the capability. It doesn't. It didn't. And now everyone's brains are screwed. So I had someone had the audacity to say that Pfizer saved us from COVID. And I was like, is that why they're still selling us Paxlovid? Which also, by the way, doesn't work to protect you from COVID. They do get studies showing, because you can make a study show anything. It's this protective, it's that protective, it's blah, blah, blah. The actual physical protections that come along with it are what protect people. It's like, we looked at this study. It was actually a good study, you know, all things considered. It's just, you know, like most of these studies, ignores behavior. But like people who were more likely to get a COVID vaccine were more likely to be safer in a variety of ways. People who are more likely to do certain things are more likely to be safe about other things. And that is going to prevent disease and illness across the board. And the people who are less likely to take these safety precautions are less likely to take other safety precautions. And they are more likely to have things go wrong. It doesn't mean the thing protected them from whatever it was. It means that the people who take more protections have more protections. Like, it's a behavioral issue. And this is what I hate about vaccine science in general, is that they don't take into account people's behavior at all. So they don't look at an association between risk and how people drive that risk. And I just feel like it's such an unprofessional and, like, childish way to approach these data points. But you get a study that says whatever it says, and this just, I mean, and that goes to show, like, most people don't even know what's in a study. They don't know how to read it. They don't know how to interpret it. They go to school to do this stuff. It doesn't mean anything. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They just read what other people said and then republish that and try to seem like they're smart. That sound about right?
Even at face value, if you just took it at face value of like 50%, that's a coin. That's a coin flip. Like,
yeah.
How is that good enough?
Yeah, that's a coin flip.
You know?
Yeah, it's mind-boggling to me that someone can read that and go, that is good. They can both say COVID is this super dangerous, neurological, long COVID causing, chronic illness starting, does all this terrible stuff. All these things across the board. We know what happens in vaccine infection. We know what happens. And then argue that is actually okay. That 50% protection from hospitalization is actually okay. That is protection. That is the most bonkers bullshit I've ever heard. And I feel like it really comes down to, like, people just, they don't see how, like, these terms are just made up. Like, when they say a vaccine has a robust response, that does not technically mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It's complete marketing. It does not have a, what does robust mean? And it's just like, well, it's a strong immune response. Well, what makes a strong immune response? Well, normally we get no immune response. So if we get any immune response, we call it a robust one. And that's literally how it works. So you could have the lesser vaccine going on about how robust and great it is because it relies on that marketing and advertisement to convince the public of what the data doesn't support. And because all these people who go to school just follow the leader, they don't actually think or read for themselves. I mean, think about everyone who coasts or cruises through school. Think about how many people talk about just like doing the work they need to do at the level they need to do just to get through it. They aren't really learning to think. Because you can't teach people how to think in school. You can only give them the tools and see if they can figure it out. And as a matter of fact, I would argue in a lot of modern schooling, the ability to think is deprioritized because they don't want people thinking, they just want people following the leader. They don't want, and maybe it's all just tied to the whole people are afraid of change, or maybe it's because what's the saying? Science moves forward one funeral at a time, which is horrible but true, because of how the system of the person with the most experience is in the highest leadership spot. But just because they have the right experience doesn't mean they have the best answer.
Old ideas have to die off.
Yeah, old ideas have to die off, which just, I don't like that phrase, because you're back to, so now more people need to die to move things forward. I mean, isn't there a way to move things forward without a bunch of people dying? Like, is that even an option?
Should be.
Should be. Jesus. It's like, and then you're like, well, I'd like to take a position that doesn't require so much human death, and everyone looks at you like, what's wrong with you? Why wouldn't you want as much human death as possible? And you're like, what are we even talking about now? Where are we going with this? So I don't know. I feel like now is more than ever, everything is kind of all tied to each other. I feel like from politics to ICE to COVID to just everything going on, it's all kind of the same problem of everyone's brains getting cooked by COVID. This is why we do nasal sprays and wear masks and fight for vaccines with upper respiratory tract responses, because the current run of protections does almost nothing to protect people's brains. And I think the wildest part about it is that it's your immune system doing most of the cooking. Like, COVID does enter through the brain and cause all kinds of problems, but the cytokines, we used to talk about remember when we used to talk about cytokine storms, cytokine, whatever you want to call it, storms all the time? It was like a normal thing that just kind of like vanished one day. Everyone just stopped talking about it. Those are cooking everyone's brains. Literally cooking. Because it's cytotoxic, and they get right through the blood-brain barrier, and they cook your brain. They're not good for us. Cytokines destroy cells. They identify infected cells and help in their destruction. Why would you think that would be good in your brain? And we know it messes up macrophages and mitochondria and all sorts of other issues. It disrupts the AMPA glutamate GABA cycle. That's where the brain fog is coming from. It kind of just like goes on and on and on with like, you don't have to believe in the virus. Do you believe in your immune system? I remember some people saying my immune system a couple years ago. Are they aware that their immune system cooks their brain in full body infections? I have this suspicion they're not.
Well, Joe Biden solved the pandemic, and then Omicron happened, and now it's mild.
You're in LA, right? I can hit you. Yeah, you're in LA. I could go over and sock you.
That was hard sarcasm.
Yeah, I know it was. Just Omicron. That's the other thing about the vaccines. The change up that happened is the virus changed at the same time. We had major viral changes that really made a difference in how the virus operates. And so, like, people aren't dying on ventilators not because of the vaccines, but because Omicron changed how it infected people. Like, that's another thing I don't understand, how the two things can be true at once. They can be like, the vaccine saved millions of lives, and Omicron made the virus less dangerous at the exact same time. And we do this with a lot of things, because financial interests will always take that as an opportunity to tune it in their benefit. And there's a lot more of that than people realize. A lot more. Where, like, two things kind of happen at once. One had a real effect and one didn't, but the one that didn't have the real effect is tied to money. And so they sell the crap out of that to the public who can't tell the difference. And then you can publish some bogus studies that say whatever you want them to say. Because you can publish a study for, $50,000, probably not even that much, and you're talking about industries that are worth billions, hundreds of millions. So, like, publishing bogus studies and convincing the public things are true to protect your business, I just feel like people shouldn't be so surprised that that's a thing. It's a thing in everything else. Why wouldn't it be a thing? Look at the stock market. Look at how they republish long COVID. It's good how every 6 months they republish the same advancement in long COVID discovery or something like that. And all they're trying to do is raise funding or drive something. But it's the same information we've seen. We know it does that. But the only reason that we're talking about it now is because some group wants to raise money to study it so that they can get paid. The long COVID studies, they should really piss everyone off, because you got these studies that are done for like 170 days to test treatments that we know aren't effective, And the lab gets paid that entire time. All the people who work on that study are being paid the entire time. They design these studies to take a long time because they get paid longer. And you might be like, Dawn, they're not, it's not everyone is, yes, everyone. It's everyone. Everyone. Especially when, like, what do you think people thought when it meant we were switching to a for-profit pandemic? You know, like, what did people think? Did they think that was just like, oh, now we're going to have to, like, pay for vaccines? And, like, well, vaccines are actually still mostly free. And tests were free up until recently. Which I still have to... I have, like, 300, 400 COVID tests I got to give to a group. I had hoped we'd have our thing going by now, but they're expired already. I got to get them to someone to get them out to people. I think I got, like, 480 or something like that. But
I don't think most people understand about the for-profit pandemic. I don't think they understand that all the symptoms, all the long-term symptoms they're getting from COVID are essentially just, privatized now.
Yeah, exactly. All the long-term symptoms. And that's why they want to promote vaccines that don't prevent from the long-term symptoms, because they're going to make a bunch of money off the long-term symptoms. All the people who are pushing mRNA as protection, whether they know it or not, are part of an operation to make money from chronic illness created by COVID infections. And maybe that's a hot take, but that's what they're doing. That's what they're invested in. They're not. They think they're doing it for the betterment of people and blah, 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 but they're not. They don't follow. They make a bunch of excuses. They fight really hard. Those people are fighting for more chronic illness. Because if we can't get everyone Novavax, and even, we have heard a couple of cases of people still being really screwed up post Novavax, but also they came from kind of like, I don't know, sources that weren't very trustworthy. But we've heard very little about it. It's been less, at least. And if you had gotten everyone vaccinated with Novavax and we reduced viral load across the board, then it would reduce infections, it would reduce chronic illness, it would reduce the whole problem, it would slow mutations, it would do everything we want to do. The people are more interested in, like, trying to protect this idea of what this vaccine is capable of when it doesn't do it. It's not capable of it. It makes me nuts. It absolutely makes me nuts, because the data doesn't support them, and they just keep saying, well, we just talk about it some more into the ground, and we don't want people to be turned off from vaccination. So saying bad things, that's not how it works. Saying they're all the same turns people off from vaccination because they already don't like the vaccine. It's a bunch of, like, people who are detached from society already, who don't give a fuck about people, pretending like they care about people. And that is the thing that really gets me. And then they go around and blast the people who do care about people, who do want to have the right protections, as somehow being on the wrong side of things. As if, like, fighting for people to be protected fully the right way is the problem.
We should be calling for better vaccines so that the data is undeniable.
Right. Which we're getting. Yeah. We have major success as a group. We've been advocating for a long time to get Novavax's Matrix M adjuvant. And I don't own any stock in the company. Maybe I should. I just don't, like, have money to have stock in things in the first place. I just care about, like, people not being sick all the time, because I'm sick all the time and it sucks. I hate it. If anything I could do to, like, help other people from being sick all the time would be great. Like guys, I'm sick all the time. Like, not like sick from things, just I get sick from my environment. I get sick from intolerances. Last night, something in my 8 bothered me. It kept me up. I was throwing up. Like, I'm sick all the time. It's all tied to my scarlet fever and bad flu cases and the things that I had. So, like, I care about other people because I'm going through this, and I can't stop what I'm going through. I can only manage it. So why would I want other people to go through what I'm going through? That sucks. That's a terrible opinion to have on things. I want to reduce the amount of people going through it because I know it's terrible, and, like, that should be enough. But anyways, we've been advocating for a long time to get this into other vaccines because it just increases the quality. You can just basically take it, put it into an antigen, throw it in a vaccine really fast, like super fast, and it improves the vaccines by like 3 or 4 times. And we've seen it with the malaria vaccine, and now other companies are signing up to run it and use it. I think now Pfizer has signed up to use it. They don't even make a lot of vaccines, So Pfizer coming in, seeing if they can get their market share on this as vaccines improve, is really the sign that, I mean, look at it this way. Like, Pfizer got in trouble for stealing the mRNA tech. Like, they stole the tech from Moderna. Moderna got it from the government. There was all argument over who actually owns it. The government, the U.S. government owns it. So they get paid all the
royalties.
Royalties, thank you. Which the royalties did shoot up during this period, which I think is also partially why RFK kind of backed down on axing the COVID vaccines, is because there's all this royalty money coming in all of a sudden, and they're like, hey, this is a lot. It's a lot of money. And so, not that the government needs it, but they don't know the difference because they don't understand how government works. But the point is that, you know, Pfizer stole the mRNA tech, and yet they're walking up to Novavax, cutting a deal, paying them millions and millions of dollars to access this adjuvant, which is what we've been advocating for, because it stands to, A, hopefully now they will stop trying to kill the company. That would be great. And then B, we might get real improvements to the fact, like, all the improvements they promised with mRNA were never it was just never possible. People always say, oh, it's because RFK cut funding. Technically, that funding did not get cut. That funding still happened. The Appropriations Committee went around RFK and funded that anyways. That funding has happened. Those products are just not coming to fruition. Like, they're not happening. They get to phase 3 trial, and they don't produce results we want to see in normal vaccines. But we do see those results in this improvement in adjuvants, and then we can go into improvements in antigens, making better antigens, which makes some big improvements, and that will really make vaccines better and reduce chronic illness across the board, because even though our vaccines are wildly effective, just like there are examples where people can get sick and still develop chronic illnesses, even if they don't have like a really intense acute infection, because these pathogens are extremely dangerous. So you could still theoretically improve upon our vaccines that are already very, very good, and reduce chronic illness further, which we should do. Also, we'd be getting the, aluminum in our adjuvants. It's a different type of aluminum. It's no problem, but we can get rid of it. We can get rid of it with this way. We could do a lot of things differently. We can improve on a lot of stuff. We could change things for the better, and this is a good way to increase uptake. And that goes back to, I feel that the people on the left who are pro-vaccine don't really have a good grasp on the idea that they played a big role in the public's distrust in vaccines in general. Like, we look at the measles numbers. We were talking about this in pre-call. We look at the measles numbers, and, measles did not... the amount of people getting vaccinated for measles is down, but it's down because we associated every vaccine with COVID vaccines, and for most people, you don't get vaccines as an adult. Most people in America get vaccines as a child. So they don't have a good experience with vaccines in general. And so here you are, their introduction to vaccines is you're telling them that every vaccine is as good as this vaccine, or this vaccine is as good as every other vaccine, is what they said, but that reverse associates. And then people take that and go, this didn't protect me, so I don't think I need these vaccines either. And then people stop getting vaccines. Then you have immune suppression from COVID, which is making vaccines less effective across the board. Then you also have this IgG4 issue with mRNA vaccines, where in children specifically, when you first get your mRNA, it creates that IgG4 response after 2, and that makes other vaccines less effective if you get them in that IgG4 period. So we're also seeing this rise in vaccinated or partially vaccinated people having measles cases because COVID is screwing up people's immune systems, and the mRNA vaccines damage the effectiveness of other vaccines. And we have done nothing, and this is something we've been advocating for 3 years. This is probably the biggest thing that I feel like is still on our table as a group, is getting Novavax prioritized for children, because it does not have this IgG4 issue. It doesn't have it at all. There is a study showing it has it, but that's a test of non-human primates. And if you can look it up on your own, non-human primates have different IgG4 systems. Same thing with mucosal systems. These things are distinctly human. That's why we get a lot of phase 1 studies saying, oh, this vaccine, nasal vaccine, stopped all transmission in mice. It's yeah, we've been doing that for years. It's mice data to human data doesn't translate in either IgG4 or mucosal responses. So all these people saying, oh, these things happen, oh, we got a mucosal response out of mice, and you're that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It should, because I guess, but it doesn't, because it does. I guess it just shouldn't. We'll stick with shouldn't on this one. So it just kind of like, we just have this full circle now where like people are like, follow the science, and I don't know anyone who even understands how to read the science map to follow it in the first place. And they'll be like, oh, well, you do, Don, do. So we literally have been doing it correctly this entire time. We've absolutely been making the correct interpretation. And I don't make them in a vacuum. We make them as a group. Most of them. I mean, different people in the group help different decisions. Hang on one second. I think my throat is reaching its limit.
We didn't even get to NEPA.
Oh, yeah. Well...
That's okay.
It's okay. I'm saying I haven't said it enough. I'm gonna say it wrong.
Donna has to.
Nipah.
Oh,
Right?
that's
Nipah. Right. We got the Nipah virus. They're reinstituting airport in the last 18 hours. There have been studies coming out showing that we need airborne protections for the Nipah virus, and they're starting. It's in India, I believe. It's moving into Asian countries, and they've started testing people at airports, and that's where COVID started. That's how we knew COVID was coming.
And it is airborne. Sorry, you probably somebody else. No,
it is.
Yes.
It requires airborne protections.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not good.
No, I go so far as all bad. It's a bad one. It could be, it's tough to say because we've had it before, but there's a thing that's going on that I really doesn't affect things like measles, but it is affecting other things. Is that so? Normally, you have, let's take a classroom of children. You have a classroom of children traditionally pre-COVID. You would have maybe one, maybe two per class, maybe even per grade, maybe not even in every class. You had one or two immunocompromised kids. So you have these kids who can get sick from a lot of things and will be sick a lot, but because the other kids in the class are not immunocompromised, it does not pass to the other children. And that's a lot of things. A lot of things we consider, AIDS, we refer to them as, what is the phrase? AIDS-defining illnesses. And they're because they're things that are around us all the time, but we normally have an immune system to fight it off. And so when you're immunocompromised in whatever capacity, you can have different levels of infection. So let's say you have a class of 30 kids. One of them is immunocompromised. That kid gets sick. It does not pass the thing. That kid does not pass on to anybody else. Any mutation gained in that child is gone. It dies off. Unless there's like persistence and something complicated happens. So that dies off. So as we have more and more immunocompromised kids, so now we're in a classroom of 30 kids, and let's say 18 of them are in varying levels of immunosuppression from COVID, right? They've had COVID recently, maybe they didn't, maybe they did, maybe they have long-term issues. And I think it's very important. It's like, we got immunosuppression, you got immunocompromised, you got all these different varieties of it. But I think immunosuppression is actually the best one to really explain it, because immunocompromised is part of you can become immunocompromised from immunosuppression. But I feel like you have immunosuppression, so now you have multiple kids in the classroom who can get sick from it. Right? So you have one kid come in, and now you have 18 kids, or 17 kids, right? Because one already, with varying levels of immunosuppression, that can catch different varieties of it. Some will be able to get sick really easily. Some won't get sick that easily, but when they do, they can't get rid of things. Some will just be totally vulnerable and will die, because, I don't know, we talked about this on the last call, that like child mortality is like way, way up right now. It is a key killer in kids, killing lots of children. So there's a lot going on with that. And so we now those mutations that are gained go on to become the new version of the virus. So it's kind of like COVID variants in the sense that, Omicron emerged eventually, and then Omicron became the standard variant, and then we have, XFG or BA.3.2, which I think still hasn't really gotten legs. It's trying so hard, though. We're learning a little bit more about why it is having trouble getting a foothold in different places. It has to do with how we prime people with different vaccines. Actually, a really interesting study came out on it. Not BA.3.2, but just why different variants excel in different countries. We talked a lot about immune profiling. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make here is that the longer that these things are allowed to pass between hosts, it doesn't lose the mutations it gains. It gains new mutations. So that not only makes our vaccines less effective, it also means that the virus has become more dangerous. So with Nipah right now, it's a bit of a risk because we don't know how it's gained new mutations that it didn't have before. And this is where everything is COVID at its core, because it will make, it destroyed our micro ecosystem that was in balance with our immune systems. That's the thing I feel like we don't really talk about, is it destroyed. We had developed through vaccination and other means, very good system for keeping these sort of things in check so that there were never that many infections. But more infections mean more mutations, and more mutations mean new versions of the virus, pathogens, whatever, some bacteria mixed in there, mostly viruses though. And so you're consequently in a position where these things get more dangerous. And that's where we are. So something that we might have been able to be like, oh, that won't go anywhere. Well, you do that in an immune suppressed population, and it might go somewhere. It might very well. We have no idea. This is uncharted territory. This is like space exploration for microscopic parasites. They're getting into things they couldn't normally get into, and they're going to continue to do that. And we're going to continue to have these problems until we have people. This is why we had food programs and systems where people had their needs met, because it's all tied to your immune system. And your immune system staying functional makes all the other protections we have work better. And the more dysfunctional your immune system is, the worse off you are. I have my immune system is I can get sick really easily, but I usually get rid of it, but sometimes I don't. It's a weird thing. I have trouble with I think it's a bacteria right now. I'm starting to improve a little bit. I had some house plants, I think, on moldy soil. It can be so many things once you become intolerant of an idea. And I think that intolerance is, we say this a lot because the right is intolerant of the left, but there's also intolerances in how your body handles exposure to things. And so the more exposed you are, sometimes people say, oh, well, you'll gain tolerance that way, like the Princess Bride, right, where he's I take the poison every day to eventually be immune to the poison, and that's not how it works. The more you're exposed to things, the less tolerant you become over time, because it wears the system that it tolerates it down. So it's you don't get immune to air pollution, you get cancer. So it's people, we've really lost touch with what it is, and we just sell this as the idea of, oh, well, you need to, we've gone back to oh, you need to toughen up. You need to toughen up. You think you need these vaccines? You're just not tough enough. You haven't made yourself strong. You
mean it doesn't matter how many times you go swimming in a cesspool?
Oh.
You're not gonna get stronger from it.
You can get a brain worm every time you get in that water. Just so you know, it's not. It does. The one brain worm doesn't fight off the other brain worm. I think is something that really someone needs to understand. Seeing him in that creek, that is really burned into my brain. So I mean, it's just we have this potential. I think for as bad as things are, we have a potential for things to become so much worse. And I think right now it really starts with getting Congress to stop being just total shitbags regarding how to handle ICE and DHS and immigration in general. They need to have a full stop on that. Even if it's just we need to just see how the midterms go and then decide how to handle all this immigration stuff after the midterms. That's perfectly acceptable. Let the right-wingers cry their crocodile tears. I don't care. I don't care about their fake tears because they can't be cruel. We need to have a strong stance on that. And then we need to immediately jump into primaries, which are starting already, and start supporting candidates that can get greater range and more donations and more outreach so that we can have candidates who have actual good opinions on this to be elected. I feel like there's going to be a blue wave in November. It's going to be very, very hard for them to stop that. But the idea that it becomes just more like Chuck Schumer style Democrats just is like, why even bother?
Abolish ICE is now a popular position.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I used to be one of those, like, we just need to, ICE needs to be reformed and put into, like, a bag that works for, back in, like, 2017, like 18. Like, we're talking a long time ago now. It's almost 10 years ago. But now you're, like, all the bad things you would try to prevent by having a slower approach are happening. And either these people just don't care or they don't know. And if they don't care, it's worse than if they don't. I don't know. Actually, both are awful for different reasons. Like, I don't know. Which is worse? Don't care or don't know?
Yeah, they kind of lead to the same place.
Right? Right? One just has, like, well, I didn't know. Well, you're supposed to. It's your job to know. So it's a little ridiculous when people want to be like, oh, I didn't know. I didn't. Did you? Oh, speaking of which, and we're running really long, so if anyone on the call has to leave already, it's fine. But did you see Kristi Noem is already pulling out the Nuremberg defense?
He was just following orders?
Yeah. Everything that I've done was at the order of Trump and Stephen Miller.
Wow.
Yeah. She said that a couple days ago. Like, that was, like, the thing. So, okay, this is actually really interesting what's going on with ICE. I saw someone break it down. I wish I could give the creator credit, but it's just information that's out there. But it basically comes down to, you got human, whatever, not actually human. Homan, right, there we go. And Kristi Noem. And the thing is, it turns out that Kristi Noem has not really been running things. She's had this guy who she's been having an affair with.
Corey Lewandowski?
Right, and he's basically been running the show. And that's why there's been this big push for, like, numbers and hitting maximum stuff and just being as cruel as possible, because he's not actually in a position where he's, like, known to the public. He's telling people what to do, and it's coming from a combination between him and Stephen Miller. So
and then she gets to get on the camera, get in front of the camera and film the commercials with the hat and
right. That's why Ice Barbie was a surprisingly good thing. It sounded kind of insulting just to be insulting, and then
it's Corey.
Yeah, but really it's this other guy. And so the other guy, who I'm still saying his name wrong, Homan. He wants to come in and have more, like, targeted the thing, blah blah blah. But that's all, like, a lot of that is just, like, an image he's trying to create. A lot of it is just, like, they're just trying to make it seem like they're more reasonable. We're the more reasonable of the two. But it's still just as awful a family. He's the family split up guy. He's the guy who enshrined the family split up policy. He's, like, a really, really bad dude. So he's no better. And the cat's out of the bag in the sense of how ICE agents are and how they're being. So, I mean, I don't really see any way for this to move forward without, like, a full stop on everything that's happening. And that's just, like, we need those prisons emptied. They shouldn't exist in the first place. We need these children reunited with their parents immediately. The people who don't do that need to be held legally accountable for not following the law. There should be warrants put out for their arrest. They should be arrested by local police for violating the law. Which I actually kind of think that there is, like, the process is kind of scary depending on who we look at, but they already do it for, like, poor people, so why wouldn't they do it for rich people? We should have a system where if the police are going to be here, they should be, like, when someone violates, like, they won't do this Epstein stuff. These people should be arrested. There should be a warrant out for their arrest. If they're responsible for this and they are breaking the law, there should be a warrant out for these people. They should be arrested like normal people who break the law.
Equal justice.
Yeah, there should be equal justice on this. This idea that we don't. So maybe the idea of having ICE, get rid of ICE and just have, a border agency that works with local cops when people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, or when local cops find people who aren't here legally, it goes to them. You know what I mean? It's not like this thing where we need this additional enforcement agency that's obviously too confusing for these meatheads, And it also just creates so much gray area that it's always going to be manipulated. Now, I'm not a big fan of the police and doing all this sort of stuff, but I feel like at the same time, if maybe that was rolled over and you're like replacing some of the stuff with the drug war stuff, because the drug war stuff is a big problem because it's tied to a lot of overtime. So a lot of these police officers, there's a saying that we don't actually pay police enough, and people will always be like, dude, the ACAB, you can't say that. Like, no, but the reason things are so bad is because we don't pay them enough, so they have to find other ways to get payment, and that's what the drug war
subsidize.
Right, yeah. The federal government subsidizes their actions into more time because they're harassing people of color, whether they have drugs or not, but they can tie it all to, like, drug crimes. And, like, if that was tied more to, like, immigration in a sense, it might actually be better in some ways, because it would take lawless, people off and make it should be an administrative. It shouldn't be like these people don't need to be violently arrested when you're either finding them on the streets, doing something illegal, they're here illegally. It should go to border enforcement, or if border enforcement needs somebody arrested, it should go to the local cops. And they're like, well, we don't know who's here illegally. You're like, yeah, we don't.
We'll have to try them in the courts.
Yeah, you gotta do. That's how due process works. That's how the freedom of America works. And it's like, if you don't like the freedom of America, well, and it really does go back to that. No one is illegal on stolen land. I feel like is really like needs to be the policy here. Like, this is stolen land. We took it from the Native Americans. We get into long debates about how wrong that is and how awful that is. But it is awful. It is wrong. But you can't then steal these people's land and then say all these people who are trying to come to it just like you did are now illegal. Like, we're closing the door behind us because you're afraid of election policy. It's like, why don't you just have policies that help people and are good for people, and then you don't have to worry about like putting pressure on people like this. It's just, that's like, it's like back to the Democrats. It's like all the Democrats have to run on is stuff that's good for the people, and they'll overwhelmingly win. But they just refuse to do it because these candidates are not there to do things for the people. They don't even know how to do that anymore. And that's where, like, people are like, the Democrats are awful. And it's, no, the people who aren't supporting the right people during, like, we're responsible for our own mess. And it really comes back to, I guess, that there's, like, a sense of responsibility that's lost across the board, where people won't recognize that their role and what they did and how they could be, like, what did you do wrong? What could you do differently? And that's just, I don't feel like an association that Americans make very easily. Like, when I do it, people like jump on me and try to say, oh, see, Don says he was wrong. They were wrong. So that means they're wrong about everything. No, I said I was wrong because I'm willing to say, like, hey, what could I have done better? How could we improve upon this? Like, every time we get into a pre-call and I'm melting down about something, I go on for about 10 minutes and then I say, okay, what could I do different? What can we control that will have some effect on this environment? And I feel like a lot of people forget that the thing you can have the most control over is yourself. Unless you're an ICE agent, and apparently it's...
Then you don't have any control.
Hispanic families. Yeah. Okay, I think we should wrap up there, guys. It's gotten kind of late. I want to thank everyone for being here. Does anyone have any final sort of thoughts before we get out of here?
I don't think so.
I think it's just me and you, Jesse, now. We're down to just the four of us.
Heather and Donna are still here.
Yeah, I know, but they're still nervous about talking. Donna's like, you said the word right. I don't gotta talk. And anyways.
Have a good night and stay safe.
Good night and stay safe. There it is. You too. So
everybody.
Yes. So we'll be back on Monday. Thank you everyone for being here. You can join us on Discord. I'm gonna probably put out something thinking about, like, I'm kind of inspired to write an article to talk about demands with the Senate situation and what we can do if there is a delay. Like, the best thing we're going to get out of the Democrats right now is they're going to fund the government and then not fund part of DHS, or they'll do a temporary funding bill for a short amount of time. And whatever that window is, that's our window to jump on the politicians and really show where the change is. Because with primaries coming up, this is the time when the public has the most leverage. So this is the time when we have the opportunity to do the most and to be the most effective. And so that means pressuring politicians has the most effect. So if they're not going to, like, do things, if they hear the writing on the wall, they're just going to feed their primary challenger to take up the position that is popular with the public, and that's just going to unseat them and lose their job. So we kind of gotta leverage that reality against them at the moment, and we can do that. Also, call did not get interrupted. Hour and a half, no interruptions. So that's other than my talking too much. So this is like it's almost working. Yeah, almost. Until we'll get the call back from a little bit saying, "Oh, I can only hear Dawn talking. Where was everyone else?"